In this episode, we're going to talk about a cave, and it's actually a mine as well. But a comment about mines. We've had a number of episodes where we've talked about mines from the different people that we've worked with here on Mysteries. And Arizona is just covered with mines. I mean, it's just unbelievable how many mines that there are here in Arizona that are abandoned. And people that get off trail and do some off-trail stomping, which we don't recommend, will stumble onto mines periodically. And you'll get news stories about it, or you'll get somebody posting a message on their Instagram or something about how they discovered another mine. But you do want to be careful if you get off trail, because every once in a while, every 2-3 years, we'll get a story about someone who's fallen into a vertical pit mine in some of the strangest places, out in farm fields and all over the place. So someone will be out there walking their dog and they'll stumble onto a mine, and then they'll have to do a rescue out of the vertical mine shaft. Funny thing is I don't ever recall seeing a story where someone was out walking their cat and fell into a mine. Oh well. Anyway, so this particular mine is off of the Peralta Trail, and it's the Carney Mine, or the Bat Cave. Now, bat caves is kind of a real generic term, and in the superstitions, I've heard different, there always comes up with at least 2 bat caves to people that know the superstitions pretty well. But there's also sometimes you'll run into another one that's called Bat Cave there. So there could be as many as 3 that's unofficially labeled Bat Cave. The one we're going to be talking about today is a little better known as a Bat Cave because it's much more accessible than the other ones. But it's also known as a Carney Mine. So most of the bat caves are not natural bat caves. There's one over on the northeast side that is a natural cave that is a bat cave, but it's very difficult to get to. But this one was actually a mine that bats have taken up residence in. So while this one's called the Carney Mine, Carney was a gentleman that was very active in this area. And so there's the Carney Springs, there's a Carney Waterfall, there's this particular cave that's a bat cave / Carney Mine. Above this, on the cliffs and the mountains above this, that area up there is covered with a bunch of other mines and mine shafts that we can thank Carney for. So this particular one, though, we're going to go to, it's a fairly easy one. It's a good hike. It's a good one for people that don't do a lot of hiking to go to. And so we're going to take and go out to this particular Carney Mine Cave, or the Bat Cave. All right, so to get to the Bat Cave, you take the US 60 out to the Peralta trailhead. It's technically Peralta Road. It's a state land area there, so it belongs to the Arizona State Land Trust. You'll notice all kinds of signs as you drive out that way that says you need permits. You've got to have a permit to be on this land. It's a trivial amount if you're just a day hiker, So technically you should go ahead and get one of those. We'll put a link to this down in the description where you can go to get it. It's like $20 for a group of 10 or 15 people. I don't remember the exact number. So it wouldn't hurt you to go ahead and get a permit just to be legal. Very few people do, though. I haven't seen permits in the windows of very many cars out there. Now, the Peralta Road has several spots where you can stop and turn off. They have several ranches that you'll pass as you go on up the road. This particular place that we're going to park is a location that you'll see a lot of cars there, but you won't see a whole lot of signs labeling that this is where you should park. So again, we'll put the description of that in the notes below and also on the website. If you go on up the road a little further, you'll go past a number of other ranches and other activities that the state has put in, and eventually you'll get to a large parking lot that's called the Peralta Trailhead. And this particular one, we'll do it another time, but it takes you up to Soldier Summit, and you have a real good view of much of the Superstition Mountains. So watch carefully as you go on up the road that you find the right place to park. If there's a lot of cars there, you can go on up a little further, and you'll notice there's a couple of other pull-out places where you can go ahead and park. I have never heard of anyone having trouble by the state police parking there. It's not a no parking zone, so you're fine. But once in a while, someone will come by and hassle people about their permits. Now, this particular trailhead will also come to in another episode, because it goes up to Apache Kid Cave and Wave Cave, and we've done an episode on that, but we'll also do a hiking one to that location as well. So it's the same parking spot for both of those. So here we are. We're going to start heading out onto the trail. You'll notice it's a big, wide road, and that's because of all the mining activity and other activity that's been going on up in there, that they have put a lot of cars and vehicles and trucks going up and back to the different mining camps and the different mines up there. Once you get up to a ways up there, you'll notice the road kind of peters out. So just kind of stick to the road. Again, we don't recommend doing any off-road or off-trail hiking. It could be dangerous, not only because you could get into an area that it's difficult to get out of, but you could stumble into something that could twist an ankle or something of that nature. All right, so going on up the trail. Now, there's two paths to get to where you cross the fence to go up to the back cave. So we're going to take one of the options on the going up, and we'll take another option on coming back. And frankly, if you do the option we use coming back, it's a little bit shorter, but there's a reason why we wanted to go ahead and go up to this point anyway. So now we'll come up here to the fence, and you'll notice that this is again a boundary fence for the wilderness area. So once you cross the fence, you're now in the Superstition Mountains / Tonto Forest wilderness areas. Now, it's labeled on many of the maps as Carney Springs. And it's not really the springs here, but what it is a large watering pit. Now, I've been up in this area a couple of times, and I've never really looked for it. So this time we decided we would look for it. And sure enough, down into the wash off there to the left, as you're looking at the fence, you'll see that we come up to a concrete basin that is put up to gather water and to catch water, probably for the cattle. But I'm sure back in the older days when they put this up that it was kind of a general cistern where they could fill up their canteens and whatever else they needed. So that's kind of an interesting thing if you want to do a little diversion, to go down and see the old cistern that they had put up there. Now at this point, we're not going to cross the fence. Actually, we do, just to look for the cistern, but go back, and we're going to be on the State Land Trust, and we're going to go up to the east. So basically, from the fence point of view, you're going to the right, and we're going to follow the trail. It's called Gold Miners Trail that goes on along the fence line. Now, this particular trail goes all the way from the parking lot at Peralta Trailhead all the way over to Hieroglyph Canyon Trailhead. And so this is one that just skirts along the base of the Superstition Mountains there. And it's kind of an interesting hike. I've hiked that one a couple of times. So we're going to go off to the right. You'll notice we go down through some washes, and it trails back and forth, and it's not a straight line along the fence. It gets away from the fence a little bit. So here you have to kind of pay attention, because you'll now find an area where the fence looks like it's kind of not evenly spaced, and there kind of looks like there might be an opening that you can open and close. and that's what you're looking for. So again, we'll have the GPS coordinates for you. So once you cross here, now you're actually on the trail to the Bat Cave. You've got probably another mile to go to get to the Bat Cave. It might be a little more than that. Interesting hike. The trail is pretty well marked just from people walking on it. It's not as popular as some of the other trails, so it's not real well traveled, but it's traveled well enough to where you'll see what's going on. And you can see here as we walk down the trail kind of what you're going to be running into as we move on down. Now, as you start getting closer and closer to the cliffs, you'll notice that it looks like the trail's going to run right smack dab into a real nice vertical cliff, which it does. It's kind of flat area there. You can see where it's been kind of worked, and they've kind of leveled it out, and there's been a lot of stuff there. Well, that's the tailings from the different mines that they've dumped either over the cliff or pulled out of the Bat Cave, Carney Mine cave. This was most likely a camp area and a campsite, and this is where the workers would camp. There's also another one that we'll view when we go up to the upper mines, where it's actually labeled on most maps as Carney Mine Camp. So anyway, now it almost looks like the trail disappears here. And if you look around to the right when you're facing the cliff, you'll notice there's several trails that you can see easily. Those are all the wrong trails. Don't take them. It'll just get you down into some washes and into some scrub, and it's not a pleasant place to be. What you want to do is you want to pretend that you're going to hike with your left shoulder hard against the cliff face. And so if you just go on up to the cliff face, put your left shoulder against the cliff face, and start walking forward, you're going to suddenly see that there's a trail there, and that's the trail you want. It's a little bit hidden to get to the opening of that trail, but nevertheless, it's really what you want, and you can get on there. So you can kind of see what it looks like here as we show you what the trail area looks like. So as you round this corner, you'll be able to see the entrance to the mine. Now, several of the mines, the Forest Service and the state have been diligently blocking them off just because they don't want people getting hurt. And so you'll notice that this has a big grating on it, very heavy steel. It looks like 1-inch square pipe. They've buried it deep into the walls of the cave entrance there and labeled keep out and all that kind of good stuff. The first time I went to Bat Cave, that gate was not there. The second time I went, the gate was there, and there's fundamentally no way to get back into it. You'll now notice that some enterprising, to use the term loosely, hikers have gone in and cut away one of the cross pieces so that you can get back into the cave. So it's totally up to you. It's clearly marked as an unsafe area, but a lot of hikers will go ahead and go back in there. So it goes back about 600 feet and gets into a pretty wide opening area there. Jack Sanfelice talking about his experience there at the Bat Cave.
But the mines are still there. And I was teaching at the community colleges, and I was also lecturing around the area. I used to like to take them back in because it was a safe mine. It was all hard rock. It wasn't a chance in the world it was going to collapse on you. And so we're going back, and we get back there and go back 600 feet. I tell them what you got to look for and bring lights, of all things, with boots. Because the first time I went in, there was two rattlesnakes right inside the entrance. And that's, of course, where rattlesnakes like to go. We start to go back into Bat Cave, and one of the guys in front hears this noise. Brrr, brrr. You hear that rattle, and oh, shoot. We can't find a rattlesnake. We couldn't see him. There was no way in the world. Well, it was a black rattlesnake is what it was. And you couldn't see that son of a gun. It was dark. I didn't kill the black rattlesnake because they're so rare. We did find them, and we got him and we took him out. We carried him out, actually. So we got rid of the snakes and we went back. But when I started taking people back there, we go back 600 feet, dogleg, and there's bats. Now there's a few bats, and I'm saying 20 to 30 bats back there. And as time progressed, and a few years later, I go back again. I'm taking another group back, and you dogleg again. You go back, and at the end of almost at the end of the tunnel, you start seeing bats, but not 20 or 30. There's 200 to 300 bats. But the one thing you can't do is make loud noises. You can't holler. You can't drop stuff. You can't bang against the walls. You can't bring canteens that are metal that bang. So you got to be quiet so you can observe them. And it's kind of really neat to see them. It's like looking at a beehive for the first time, and you see all of these little bees. Bzz. Well, that's what the bats are. They're all just kind of like just hanging out. And that's what they do. They hang from their feet. So they were hanging out. So I'm bringing this guy named Jake. Jake's with our group. I'd say, Jake, whatever you do, don't say anything. Keep quiet. You don't want to disturb the bats. You want to be able to see the bats and photograph and not disturb them and don't get a chance. We get back there, no problem, 600 feet. We get back there, we go another 100 feet, and I put the light on, and we're getting closer, 40 feet away from the bats, about 40 or 50 feet. All of a sudden, Jake goes, God almighty, look at all those bats! Guess what happens? 200 or 300 bats come out of it. Because what are the bats going to do? They're going out the escape hole, which is right by us. So everybody's got to hit the floor. Brrr. One guy had a hat on. It knocked his hat off. And he is petrified, okay? Petrified. And the bats.
At different times when I've been there, there's been more bats or fewer bats. This particular time we went, we didn't see a whole lot of bats back in there, but you know, it's really dark and it's really hard to know, and so unless you've got a really powerful flashlight, you're not going to disturb the bats and stir them up to see the bats. But nevertheless, it's an interesting cave. It's got a nice floor to it, sandy, but just like any of the mining caves. So the main reason you want to go there is just it's a really good hike and kind of an interesting place that's off the normal beaten paths. It's a good place to go, and it's a nice area. It has a great view of the valley as you look on out across the valley going south, across all the remaining Superstition Mountains and a lot of the ranch areas down in there where a lot of the ranch stories that we've told in previous episodes occur. And, you know, so take some time, eat your lunch there, you know, and just enjoy the view and enjoy what you're seeing out there. As we prepared to leave, we were just getting back into that leveled area where all the gravel stuff was that we believe was a campsite area. And we happened to look off to the left, and there was a mesquite tree there that just looked kind of strange. And as we got looking at it and looked at it closer and closer, it was obvious that this mesquite tree had been struck by lightning. And you can see where it had split some of the branches and where it charred up, you know, the tree itself and created some dead ones, and some just continued to live, but kind of off in weird angles and that. So take some time and enjoy seeing what can happen if you happen to be out in the Superstition Mountains during a thunderstorm. You really want to find shelter and not be out there if there's lightning going on. You don't want to look like that mesquite tree. So we headed on back. Now this time, instead of following the fence line, which in this case would be to the right from where we were going, interesting that it's right both ways because we're facing different directions. So in the earlier one when I said go to the right, that's because you're facing north. This time we're facing south. So instead of going off to the right along the fence line, you'll notice that there's a nice trail right in front of you. And so that's the other trail. So we take this trail, and you can kind of see what this trail looks like as we move on down there. And this is where it intersects back to the road that goes on up to the previous fence line that we did at the beginning. So if you're paying attention, you'll notice that here it's not well marked. There's no cairns or anything marking that area to show you that there's a trail there. You just have to watch that there's just a little bit of a wider area through the brush right there. So again, we'll put the GPS coordinates on it, and if you follow that, you can take that trail, which is a little more direct. But the other trail is an interesting trail and a fun one, and if you're out just hiking for fun, take both routes. You'll see some interesting bush and trails, and depending upon the year, you might see some animals out there and some flowers, and it just takes some time and enjoy where you're at. So this takes us back to where our car is and we're parked. So this kind of wraps up this particular activity that we went on. Now, one of the reasons why we're doing these is because it's a lot better to see what you're going to get into and see what things look like rather than just hear about it. So we hope this has been helpful. The Bat Cave becomes one of the other mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.